The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of Green Acres and our guests. These general gardening tips and suggestions may work for you, as well as those from alternative sources. When using any garden products or tools, read and follow all label directions. And learn how to make your yard summer strong at bewatersmart.info.
The Green Acres Garden Podcast is the podcast dedicated to helping gardeners hone their growing skills while we celebrate our love of plants. So whether you're new to growing or a seasoned gardener, you're sure to learn something new. Join the fun as we have conversations with world-class growers, passionate green thumbs, and professional garden experts from Green Acres Nursery and Supply. Listen every week. We'll answer questions you didn't know you had. I think that I shall never see a poem lovely as a tree whose hungry mouth is pressed against the earth's sweet flowing. Hey, welcome everybody to the show. This is the Green Acres Garden Podcast. I'm your happy host, Kevin Jordan, your garden goblin extraordinaire, back in studio for a wonderful episode. We actually, we're done with our field trips for today. It's raining.
We're back home.
We're on a rainy day schedule in studio with Austin on the soundboard. How's it going, Austin?
Everybody. Welcome back to the show. All of you beautiful green thumbs out there. And I love how you're a garden goblin today.
Yeah.
We've been talking a lot about goblins lately.
Yeah, some good goblin energy,
yes.
And I mean that in a good way, for sure.
And we also have a guest in studio with us today, the one, the only, Anne Fenkner. Welcome.
Oh, hey, thank you. Thanks for the warm welcome, and thank you for
of course
today. This is great.
It's good to have you, and it's good to talk trees. We've been on a tree roll a little bit.
Loving trees. Anne introduced us to the tree circus,
yes.
as well
Aren't
as was our bridge to Ray Trethaway. They were
Yes.
great.
We had a
and they're doing
blast.
good work.
Yeah.
Kids need to learn about trees. We need more trees. Speaking of kids, one of my babies at home, I have twin 8-months-old at home. They had their first word. So I was in there, and the baby, 8 months, and he's like, I hear it. He's all, Dad, Dad. And I'm like, oh my God, say it.
Dogwood.
Daffodil. You baby, don't you step on my joke, Austin. Yeah.
Sorry.
God, that took me all week. That was the one that took me all week.
Daffodil.
Yeah. No, but he had Dad. It was crazy. And so I was kind of upset. It wasn't
that's
dogwood.
huge.
I was hoping it'd be like dogwood or daffodil.
Well, I just learned about how cool dogwoods were at Dawn Gardens.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Right now. Yeah.
I was blown away. Dude, that's amazing. That's a big milestone. Congrats.
Yeah,
It was good
wonderful.
times. It was good times. But no, yeah, I got that. Maybe I'll teach him some binomial nomenclature later on.
There we go.
But with that aside, we are so privileged and stoked to have you.
Yes.
And for our listeners who maybe don't know, and correct me if I'm wrong, arborists, tree, just professional extraordinaire. Many years working with trees, urban forestry.
People, yep.
Please fill me in. Where did I go wrong? Where did I go right?
You're straight on. That's all good. I'm also a UC Master Gardener. I love connecting people to the outdoors.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of which, right before we started, you mentioned you've just flew in from. Can you tell us a little bit? Would you share where you've been and what you've been up to?
I'm happy to talk about anything. I was at the Partners in Urban Forestry Conference in Chicago. It's the biggest, the best, brings together the elements of municipal arborists, the nonprofit sector, and utility arborists all in one room. It's fantastic. It's my favorite conference of the year.
What did you get from it? What did you think were some of the concepts and ideas, or is there any consensus? Is there conflicting ideas on best practices? What really comes out of that?
Really no conflicts at all. It's really the biggest messages where this is our time. This is our time. The federal government last year in 2023 released $1.3 billion investments in urban forestry across our nation. And to give you a sense of scale or perspective here, Kevin, it in the years past, it's been about 36 million. So we went from 36 million to 1.3 billion.
So no excuse. Now we got to get these.
Well,
get those
there's a
trees
sense
in.
of urgency, and every entity that received funding has 5 years to get whatever they promised done, and that's not a lot of time. What are the priorities here? Well, the whole reason behind this is that urban forestry trees have finally been recognized as a strategy towards reducing urban heat.
Oh, it has like an island name.
Is it the urban heat island effect?
There you go. Spot on.
But not island in a good way.
No, our cities are warm. They're warmer than the surrounding suburbs and rural areas. And here's the thing, they're getting hotter.
Is it all the concrete, the asphalt just absorbs it and doesn't release it as quickly as like open soil would?
Yeah, and we're running our air conditioners, and that's causing heat, right?
Oh, I didn't
We're
think about
creating
that.
these isolative bubbles, if you will, and the bottom line is heat kills, especially for vulnerable populations. The city of Phoenix has a designated heat resilience officer. In fact, the state of Arizona has a heat reduction officer. That's how important this is.
I've been there. That makes sense.
Yep.
Because it gets hot.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
You've made your career in trees. You just came back from a conference, just meeting people and synergizing or whatever, talking about trees. Why trees, Anne? Why do you love trees? Why should other people love trees? And why do we need more? Make the case.
For me, the tree has always been a place of solace, of recovery, it's my quiet go-to. It's my reset button, if you will. Even as a kid, I would sit under the trees and kind of get lost looking up through the branches and all. I had my folks, we had a small farm, and surrounding it were these pie cherries trees. So I grew up climbing trees, eating the fruit right off the trees, climbing these, the Douglas fir up in the Pacific Northwest area. And it's just part of the wildness of my upbringing coming up. And I would love to give that experience to so many kids. I ask you, how many kids in your world, your friends' kids, your family's kids, your own kids, Kevin, they're a little young yet. They're still in the larval stage, but eventually, after they get their vocabulary down and start moving a bit, they're going to be climbing trees.
Already, I have a 3-year-old, and so he's into it for sure.
Yeah. What kind of trees do you have in your backyard?
We have a couple. I have oak trees, and I have some sequoias.
Yeah.
And all of which are pretty huge.
Yeah.
But so it's kind of fun to see them towering over us, providing some shade. And you mentioned it's like how you share the trees a little bit. I was just gonna say it's kind of nice. I have trees that I enjoy that aren't even mine, just my neighbor's trees that just help provide a little, just something extra. I don't want it's nice to be able to look over and just see trees and branches, and it's really nice. I feel like when you go through a neighborhood, that's one of the first things I notice is the trees. Right now I'm noticing, and maybe you've seen this, and this is maybe something that you might be working on. I don't know. But I've noticed in our neighborhoods, you'll see a lot of lawns where the lawn has kind of been forgotten, kind of left. Now you have a dead lawn, and there's a spot where either a tree used to be or a spot where a tree could be. It's like, how do we motivate those folks to be like, hey, let's, throw down.
Fill in the gaps.
Fill it in. A little 5-gallon, little 15-gallon tree, whatever. Just get it in there, because I'm just noticing that there's, I feel like I'm seeing a lot of progress with our own, urban forest and canopy in our own neighborhoods. But I feel like there's more.
Oh, absolutely.
That we could do.
And I got to tell you, different communities are doing different things. I can't say enough good things about the city of Rancho Cordova. They are not just saying they're pro-tree; they're doing it. They're addressing some of the issues of perceived blight. It was kind of expensive to remove a tree. And Rancho Cordova, as it was, growing up in the 60s, 70s, 80s, we plant what we have, we plant what we know. And this was before the spectrum of plant material that we have today. I'm just giving a nod to Green Acres, a fantastic opportunity for people to have a spectrum of trees and plant material to choose from. But the back before even box stores, we didn't have that great of a selection. So people might have gone to maybe Capitol Nursery, more likely Denio's, and got whatever somebody was selling.
You just get what you can get.
You get what you get. The mulberries grow quickly. The ash grow quickly. Oaks do as well.
A fruitless mulberry, come on, that's basically like a large, fast-growing weed.
It's a natural umbrella.
Yeah, for sure. You cannot stop them from growing.
Well, and with that became the culture of topping, which is really one of the worst things one could do to a tree.
So that's the fruitless mulberry
Yep.
that you brought up, and those are the ones you see in our neighborhoods that almost people treat like a large shrub in a way. Sometimes you'll see folks come in and just shear them and nub them back.
It's horrendous.
Can you talk a little bit about that, and what is the solution to not doing that?
Education.
Yeah.
Education. So what happens when you top a tree is that you have just ruined the structural integrity of this thing that is standing, right, perpendicular to the earth, standing, moving, bending and such 24/7, 365. It is, and imagine all the weight on a branch, right? And by taking it off, what happens? Well, reaction growth. But the reaction is happening on the outside right? There's nothing, you just ruin the integrity of the structure of this tree. And so the new growth is on the outside, the cambium layer.
Can you tell our listeners what the cambium layer is responsible
it's like
for?
a bunch of little tiny sprouts.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It comes back bushy. Like I said, it almost turns the tree into a shrub.
Right. And cambium, what's that?
Okay. So under the bark, there's a couple of layers of live tissue. And I'm talking, they're just, cell, thick. They're just, it's
very thin.
Very thin. You can't even really see it. So you have the xylem, right? And so that helps that's the route for the water to go up to the branches and leaves, right? And then you have the phloem, which is taking the energy from the sun and moving it down.
And bringing those dissolved sugars back to feed
That's
the
right.
roots.
Yeah, two lanes of traffic here.
That's right. And there's one more layer, and that's the cambium. That's where all the growth takes place. Think about the rings on the tree. Where does that come from? The cambium layer.
And it just hardens and solidifies each year as it grows.
So what makes a tree a tree?
What makes a tree a tree? Well, we talked with the tree guys. They said it was a woody perennial that's typically over like 15 feet tall that often has a single trunk but can be multi-trunked as well.
Yeah. The simple answer to that, absolutely yes. The simple answer is the ability to make secondary, to make wood, to make secondary growth.
To get lignified.
Yeah.
Lignified.
Yeah. Can you describe what's lignin?
That's a very goblin word.
Yeah.
It is.
Right now.
Right now.
Yeah. That's all. So I bring up the cambium because that's really cool to learn about. And I see when trees are young.
Well, that's the living part of the tree.
Right.
And so again, talking about this reactionary growth, it's barely hanging on a cellular level, right? And every year the little branches are going to get a little bit bigger, right? Every year.
You're hoping.
Well, it will. I mean, or it's either going to thrive or die, one or the other. Because that's the nature of a tree, to add on a ring or a cambium layer every year. So what's it attached to? The outer edge. It's hanging on by a string, my friends, and it's getting bigger and heavier, and that's the risk that we are taking, that we are providing to ourselves. That a top tree has weakly attached branches. They're more likely.
So all that new growth you're saying is as it comes out, it will have weak attachments.
People think they're keeping it tidy and tight for safety. And you're doing just the opposite. You're creating a hazardous situation.
Oh, no.
Good to know. Good to know. Okay, so when you said topping, for anyone who's listening, maybe doesn't know, can you describe just what topping is for somebody who doesn't know what that is?
Just like it sounds.
Yeah.
Aggressive head cut.
Yeah, for sure, right?
Yeah.
But
it's also just like, on a very flat plane.
Yeah, you're not paying attention to where the next lateral is or the next attachment point and doing any sort of assessment of the tree and planning for its health and well-being. It's about a force control issue, right?
Yeah. Well, with that in mind, pruning, how important is training a young tree? Let's say I got a 5-gallon or a 15-gallon at home that I just planted. How should I be training that young tree with pruning? How often? What does that look like? And is that tree dependent? Where do I start?
Well, that's a great question. Actually, before you start buying trees, getting trees, growing trees, planting trees, let's talk about the right tree in the right place for the right reason. Because here's the thing. We all grow, like we have a DNA path already in us, right?
We came from the trees. We want.
Well, you got that from your parents, and you're giving that to your children. Chances are your sons will be probably the same height as you, right? And your spouse.
We'll see.
Okay.
So
I've been giving them weird hormones, so we'll see.
But certain species are going to naturally be a certain way.
That's right.
You're saying at maturity.
That's right. And a valley oak will have over the course of its lifetime will have a wide spread. Will have massive branches. Have tremendous canopy. A crepe myrtle will never get to the capacity of an oak. So
tree, right place
for the right reason. So if you're looking for a big shade tree, maybe that crepe myrtle may not be the best
Because it's never going to have that big, bold canopy that's going to get large enough to produce any.
Right, and the canopy is more rounded. I talk to people all the time. You might have purchased, say, a double-story house in Elk Grove or El Dorado Hills or something, and the intent is to use a tree to block the view into your neighbor's house.
Yeah.
Okay.
Before we start talking about pruning, let's talk about the right tree in the right place for the right reason. In this situation, it's meeting the intention of blocking a view. So what kind of tree would you select?
We have one that grows maybe a little more columnar, something
something
narrow.
tall.
You'll see that with some of the sun maples even the different varieties of sun maple will have different canopy structure.
That's right. So that's definitely a consideration. The soil capacity that you're planting in, is there enough room for this tree, this little stick of a thing that we really should have the ambition that it can grow to 80 years or more, 100 years.
Yeah, picture it at its max.
Picture it at its peak, exactly. Is there enough soil volume in this situation to meet that? How about watering? Is there going to be, what's the plan for watering? If you have a yard with sod or maybe a bunch of perennials, how are you going to get the right amount of water to the tree? And here's another consideration. Again, I'm going back to this concept of our real concept of our cities getting warmer. Dr. Joe McBride out of Berkeley, he did some fascinating research, and basically he picked up his crystal ball and looked into the future and did some projections. Our world is getting hotter, right?
Yeah, definitely.
A degree or two, and it matters. Yeah. So he did some research and investigation and did some projections about what our temperature is going to be in different places here in Northern California, throughout the Central Valley, everything from Roseville to the Bay Area. And right now, if it's, say the average temperature, say it's hovering around 90, 97, it's going to be more like 101 in the next 50 years. So let's plant for the future. Let's plant trees that are resilient to
that potential
situations that we might be living through.
What are some of your favorite low water need trees that you mentioned the oak? I love it. But are there any other trees that are on the back of your mind when you're thinking, a good choice? Let's say size isn't a limitation, full sun, but you want it to be either climate adapted or drought tolerant. What are some good trees that you like?
There's so many of them. We're so fortunate here in the Sacramento area because we can grow so many things. I find that the limitation really is the soil capacity and the water availability. Look around to what you like. Pistache trees, the Chinese pistache
they're
are
on
just
fire.
Oh, they're beautiful.
Yeah.
It's like a cornucopia.
Yeah, they're looking good.
Yeah, they're fantastic.
Vibrant color.
Right? And the maples are doing well. But again, what's your intention? What is the intention? If you want to really acknowledge the history of Sacramento and what was here before, people talk about, I want to plant native. No, you don't. What's indigenous here? It's the black walnut. It's the willow. It's the cotton. Do you really want a cottonwood in your front? No. There are climate adaptive trees that do very well here. So again, it's the right tree in the right place to meet your intentions for the right reason.
I love that.
What's your thought? Oh, sorry.
I want to jump in because you shared this sentiment when we met up with you at the Harvest Day in this last summer.
Wasn't that so much fun?
Oh, I
It was a
loved
blast.
it. And you were telling us about climate adaptive and the tree trials that were going on.
Yes.
And there's trees that were native to Texas.
Yes.
And then there's other just really great climate adaptive trees. I went down the rabbit hole and I started finding them all.
Did you research this a little bit?
I did,
Good.
and we shared it so when that episode came out, we linked to it. And I think I might want to link to it again.
Please
now
do.
It's coming up again. There's a whole list of trees that they recommended for the future of Sacramento.
That's exactly right.
And
that
I
goes in
loved
line
it.
with Dr. McBride's work.
Yep.
And this was
It
really...
was the U.S. Forest Service and UC Davis put
That's
this
right.
out.
Well, I'll tell you who it is. It's Dr. Greg McPherson.
There we go. Okay.
Yeah. Dr. McPherson has been a researcher for he's retired now for the U.S. Forest Service, and he currently serves, I believe, as the board president for Tree Davis, another wonderful organization in our...
Tree Davis. I don't know that one.
What?
Oh, I got to check that out.
Yeah.
You don't know?
I don't know.
Just kidding.
Another wonderful organization really focused on the in Yolo County. So they do a lot of planting and tours and advocacy and really great outreach to the communities within Davis, Woodland. I even think up to Winters.
Nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was a great, a lot of trees too. There was quite a number of them. And I don't remember all the specific species, but it was exciting to be able to give people like, this is the future of the types of trees that we should be planting.
A lot of the trees are coming up from, like you said, from Mexico, from Texas, from Arizona. You know, the Palo Verde is kind of new to our palate, and
But it's beautiful.
It's stunning. If somebody wants to take a look at it, the city of West Sacramento was the first that I know of to plant them. It's right in front of the community center there. Gorgeous green, smooth bark.
Has a photosynthetic bark.
Oh yeah,
it's pretty cool.
It's something almost out of Dr. Seuss story. It's just so neat to see and touch.
And the leaves are kind of delicate and lacy. You know, the light kind of just dances through them a little bit.
To see the Palo Verde in the springtime with that screaming beautiful
yellow
flowers.
Yeah,
but
hummingbirds.
They love it. It's great. But there's always a but, right?
Yeah.
So the but is they need a lot of they can take an aggressive pruning. They have a lot of aggressive branching and cross branching. So you kind of like if somebody in your life has some control issues and likes to stay on top of their control, this is a perfect tree for them.
Just go prune your tree.
Because it's going to need more pruning than most trees.
Do you do that? How are you in the garden? Do you go out there like at home? Do you like pruning your trees? Do you like to attack a plant and blow off steam with that, or do you like to be out there with a glass of wine? You know, like, what is your approach?
Oh, geez. The honest answer is my tree care is more like my knitting, and it kind of reflects my mood at the time. It's either too tight or too loose.
Okay, so we're still working for the consistent flow.
Hey, we're all on a path of learning. You know, I planted 12 trees in the Skinny Garden.
We need an update.
Yeah, the Skinny Garden's gorgeous right now. The skyscraper asters are in full bloom. There's a couple of Chinese pistache that are just screaming orange red right now. It's we've had some storms and the leaves are collecting, but it's a beauty for sure.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love it every time I go by it.
Oh yeah,
I
it lives.
Take a look. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, with 12 trees planted along there, as again thinking about the future,
That's cool.
It will be a shady corridor.
That's huge.
Well,
It's
I
gonna
forgot
change
to
it.
add that to her credits. So arborist, tree care expert,
Skinny gardener.
guerrilla gardener.
Really good.
That's awesome. We love that you do that. For anyone listening, what do you think are the first and the most, like some of the easiest mistakes to correct? Someone who's bringing a tree home, they're going to plant it, they want to add to the canopy in their neighbor wood, their urban forest. What should they be doing to be kind of growing their tree like an arborist, even though we're all not professionals like you?
Oh man, that is such a good question. Let me reflect on a couple of the site visits I've gone to a few different homes in the past month or two, and let me just kind of reflect on the problems that I observed. So one problem is letting the grass grow right up to the trunk. If it's a young tree, you're really giving it a huge boost to remove that sod away from the drip line. Kevin, you want to talk about what the drip line is?
Yes, the irrigation drip line. No, the drip line is basically the shape of that canopy, where the farthest reaches branches go.
Imagine an invisible line going down.
Yeah.
That's the drip line, right? And so under that, especially for a younger tree, I say anywhere between, recently planted to maybe 5, 10, 15 years out, really shouldn't have the grass growing under, but instead apply
thick mulch.
There you go.
Yes.
There you go.
Can I ask you about that? Because if you have planted a tree there, my idea is that you did remove the grass to get the hole dug.
Yeah.
And then does the grass just kind of grow back over if you don't
It'll grow
mulch?
back. Some people, though, like say you're planting a 5-gallon or 15, I've seen people literally just carve out just a hole, just big enough and wide enough for that plant's root ball to just kind of slide into the hole, as opposed to digging it
big.
2 to 3 times as wide and then doing backfilling, creating that pedestal.
Why should somebody work that hard, Kevin?
Because it's worth it.
I'll tell you why. Because you're aerating the soil.
Yeah.
And a good, healthy soil profile has at least 50% oxygen. So as you're turning it over, as you're digging down, turning it over, yes.
That's impressive.
Just break it loose a little bit.
A lot. Break it loose a lot. Get down there. Get your kids involved. Break up those chunks of soil chunks and really aerate the soil. And then don't walk on it. Put mulch on it. Really encourage a wonderful environment for the worms and the creepy crawlies under the soil. So they're going to continue to aerate, right? But think about this. A root on a tree, the one that's actually absorbing the water and nutrients, it's almost you know what happens. You've seen a carrot when you leave it in the fridge for too long, right?
Starts looking weird.
Yeah.
Limp.
How does it look? Got kind of hairy, kind of white hairs everywhere.
Oh, it's trying.
Yeah. Well, that's really that's what the roots that are up taking the water and nutrients. That's what they look like. They're
root hairs.
Yeah. They're delicate. Imagine if you're a delicate little root and you're trying to establish the greater mission of establishing the tree, and you're trying to penetrate through this hard, dry soil.
This sounds like me in life.
It's hard out there for a little root.
Yeah, for sure.
So make it easier.
There we go.
Yeah, turn that soil, break it up. I love this concept, this vision that you just shared with everybody. A wide hole, about a meter in every direction, is kind of my go-to recommendation. Not less than a meter. What is that?
Yeah.
3 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dig down about the size of the container and not much more. One of the reasons that trees fail,
They sink into that hole.
they sink into the hole, and what happens?
The water starts resting on their root collar, and
That's
just where
right.
they're-
And then
yeah.
what happens?
And then they start
rots.
suffocating because they have no air.
They have no oxygen. There we are again with the oxygen.
Yeah.
Oxygen.
important.
Yes, it is.
Oof. So I do want to get back to the recent visits you had. I think that's so interesting. The first issue you found was grass growing up to the trunk. They hadn't mulched properly, or possibly even it started with digging the hole.
Yeah, I was at somebody's home, and they had the tree might have bent a little to the point that they felt like it was going to fall over, and they put rope and around it, and then they forgot, and 5 years had passed, and
Classic.
it is classic.
Yeah.
And again, that's why I'm saying check on this tree at least once a year. Why not make it a
I like
birthday
that, a birthday
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Birthday ritual.
sure.
Is that what all arborists do on their birthday?
No, I just made it up here.
Yeah, check in on your trees
man.
and plant some more.
Yeah.
For sure. You mentioned roots earlier, and I've always been curious. It's really incredible to see the power of roots. How you mentioned how those little root hairs can be kind of delicate, and that a lot of the absorption and feeding that the roots do to pull up moisture and water out of the soil and nutrients, it's not done along the sides of the roots, but at the root tips. Is
Yeah.
that true?
Yeah.
And so another
And
question.
creating a healthy soil system to have a robust root system is very important. It's it's kind of hard to because you don't see it. You
Yeah.
shouldn't see it, right?
No.
Oh, yeah.
Well, yeah, if you planted it right.
Well, and there are some trees that simply have a high root system. So again, right tree in the right place for the right reason. If you're a big fan of liquid amber, for example, it's a beautiful tree.
Great fall color, spiky seed balls,
Well, that's
surface
but
roots.
it could be perfect. If you have a place, maybe a quarter of an acre or something, you want to see that beautiful. Just don't put it anywhere near infrastructure. Keep it away from the driveway, and certainly away from the house.
And that's the vigorous, shallow roots.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Let it be what it's supposed to be. So you're asking about pruning in the earlier years. Really, with the unless there's some crossing branches, the tree really doesn't need structural pruning. I generally don't touch anything for the first 3 years because it needs every little leaf for every little bit of photosynthesis, which creates the energy, right?
Gotta eat.
Gotta eat.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so as the tree will grow, just again, monitoring before action. That is your action, monitoring, not necessarily trimming because you can't put it back.
Yeah.
You can't put it back. What happens is the branches start to grow, become more robust. They're going to shade out the little branches, and they're just going to fall off naturally.
Yeah, my sequoias in my backyard, I've noticed as it grows, and I mean, they're probably 80, 90 feet tall,
Yeah.
a couple of coastal redwoods, they will thin themselves out.
Yep.
The branches that are below, that have done well for years and years, but now because there's just a higher canopy that's thicker and above them, they get shaded out, the tree will just drop them off.
It naturally prunes
Just shed,
itself.
yes, it'll shed them.
That's
You'll see
cool.
entire branches just
Well,
fall
it
out.
is, but people are scared of this too.
Because they think something's wrong.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, there are some trees. Another tree that's just I call it a self-pruning tree is the sycamore. They're always dropping. I live
Sure.
under one. And
Platinus.
yeah.
Beautiful. They're so cool when they get mature. You see, Austin, you have them all over
Yeah.
down here.
Yeah.
Around. What is one go-to tree, big or small, that every person should have in their gardens?
What's on your mind?
For me, I think the one tree that could do really well for a lot of people, even people with limited space, and I brought up earlier the citrus. And depending upon where you live, different citrus do well in certain climates. But for us here at 9B, the sky's the limit. And I think it's for me, I grow them. I have like 4 or 5 citrus trees on my property. No, 3 or 4. And they do well, and they don't take a lot of effort. They don't grow out of control. They're all semi-dwarf in size, so they're. I can actually, instead of having like one tree, I can have several trees. I graft them as well.
So you're more about the food. You're more about
I love
the season
the food,
of food. Yeah.
but I also love the canopy. Actually, and the reason why where I'm growing them, there used to be a big oak tree there, and it left. Brought up a bunch of sun came through, and I was like, I could replant something for shade, or I could plant some food. And for me, I love that.
I totally appreciate.
But I also
the
have
food.
a lot of shade in my back. My backyard's pure shade.
Yeah, so you covet that.
Yes.
The full sun. Yeah, so anything that produces food really needs 6 to 8 hours of direct light.
Yep.
A lot of people don't know that. And they wonder, why is my garden struggling? Well, not enough light. It can be equally as problematic as anything else. Not enough water, too much light, and
Well, it's like, try growing a tomato in the shade. You're going to feel like the worst gardener ever.
Right.
You put that same plant in the full sun, you're like, oh, I'm doing things.
and water it well.
Yeah.
It's going to it's going to be well. So I certainly appreciate your the lens of food as a dad, somebody who's feeding his family. The benefit of
I love
fruit.
the flowers, the blossoms,
Yeah.
the
Oh, the
smell. They're
smell.
evergreen.
Yeah.
Even when it's it's like it has an ornamental value as well. And the ones in our school garden are so big now. We let them get about maybe 12 feet, and that there is actually a little bit of shade. When we're out there working, it provides a little bit of refuge. So for me, it's like I love that it can be kind of snuck into a lot of homes, but it's never going to be that overstory canopy shade tree like a
that's kind
big
of where
maple.
that's where my
or
preference
sycamore.
is. Yeah, I like that big, and so I guess my answer would again be elm, because the American elm, the European elm, just towering above. I mean,
Is that
European,
Ulmus? Is that
yes,
there?
that's correct.
Ulmus,
Ulmus,
okay.
yeah. The ones downtown, we are so that that they can completely cover a 3-story Victorian. That's remarkable. They were planted before we had air conditioning, but different cultivars have come about where they're smaller. The sunshine elm or the more columnar. So again, the right tree in the right place for the right reason. But I got to tell you, I continue to be awestruck by a tree that completely covers a house. I live in the East Sac area, and I live in a little bungalow, and I just put in air conditioning in this 80, 90-year-old house for the first time 3 years ago because it didn't need air conditioning.
That's cool.
Yeah, dense shade does a lot.
Yeah, the towering sycamores with, the right tree in the right place. So I have a couple of red buds on the side, on the east side, and it just all kind of works. You drop the windows in the evening and let it cool down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
And praying for that Delta breeze.
Yeah.
Come on, Delta breeze.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome.
But, nobody wants to overplant because, I've seen situations too. I'm just, again, reflecting on a recent visit to a family in the Pocket area, and they were fearful of the trees, and they truly were towering. It's that beautiful soil down the Pocket area that so you have small trees, right? The crepe myrtles and the medium size, like the Chinese pistache. And you get the big trees, like the Quercus lobata, the valley oak, and variety of maples and such. But here in Sacramento, there are a few pockets of neighborhoods, the River Park area, the Pocket area, that I call them the supersized trees. And they can really, because the soil is so wonderful.
So even with limited care, the ones that are established
it's that old
are doing pretty
riverbed.
well, yeah.
It's that old riverbed.
Fluvial.
And they just thrive. I was just at somebody's house that they hired a company who claimed to be a certified arborist. No, they claimed to be an arborist. And a great way to check is to go to treesaregood.com. It is the public-facing aspect of the ISA, the International Society of Arboriculture, where you can check anybody's credential. You can go on right now and check my credentials to see if I'm legit or not.
We did.
Oh, okay.
We already did. That's okay.
So it doesn't necessarily mean this person or this company is going to do good work, but at least it's a starting place to say that they are in good standing with the International Society of Arboriculture, the entity that regulates and credentials our profession. To be a certified arborist, in addition to taking the test, passing the test, I should say, you also sign a code of ethics. So the work that I observed, basically the series of trees had been cleaned out, and they were left with this effect called lion's tailing, which is all the weight's on the end, and there's nothing to buffer it. And so as the wind moves through, the trees are more, the limbs are
sail.
like, yeah, that's right. That's right. And the weight moves the limbs around. It's more likely to crack and break.
For sure.
And yet they paid good money for this to it was just one of those unfortunate things. They paid good money and they entrusted this service, but the company didn't have a certified arborist on staff. So, like, why would you go to a dentist that didn't have a degree
No, I
in
would
dentistry?
not. No, I would not.
I mean, I do, but it's more of a financial situation that I don't want to get into on the podcast.
I know, you're just teasing
I got a family. Kids are expensive. No. For sure.
No, so always use a certified arborist and
Absolutely.
check on tree.
Trees are good.
Trees are good.
Trees are good.
Treesaregood.com.
The name of this episode.
I'll agree
Yeah.
with that. Okay, we can
Oh,
name
that's
it that.
nice.
It was
Yeah.
good. Trees are good and going. Well, trees are good, and Anne Fenkner, you are good as well. Actually, I'll dare to say you're great.
Aw.
And so I want to thank you for making time for us, for talking trees. I'm inspired. Now, to leave us, can you pretend that I am my sons, that I'm a little baby, and you're trying to convince me, because I feel like you said this all becoming the city of trees and having a city or neighborhood that has a robust canopy and forest. That doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen by one person. It happens by a lot of people over time. And to maintain it, to replenish it, to have it spread and get this canopy and just get more lush and more vibrant, it's going to take more people who are also inspired and have that mindset and maybe a culture, a connected culture that we all share of just...
Because it's beyond us,
Yes.
right? You're growing that tree for the next several generations. Think about it. It's not just that activity of today, it's that shade of the future. And we really should be thinking about 80, 100, 200 years out. Can we grow trees to get to 200-300 years? Can we?
Yeah.
Why not?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
There we go. All right, boys, you hear that? Did Anne fire you up? I hope so.
Tell you what, I'd like to hear about the trees you plant for their birthdays.
There we go. You know, it's funny is actually I did actually. I planted an apple tree.
Did you?
Yeah, right before they were born, I planted a pink lady.
Kids love that. That's
First
a great
year.
selection.
I'll send you guys a picture I'll put it on the podcast
already
Facebook
grown.
group. I planted it as like a sapling or a
Yeah.
bare root. Technically, that was potted up and then planted this last February. Dude, it got big.
Yeah.
I had to keep pruning it back. I'm trying to scaffold I'm trying to train it because I want it nice and stocky.
Yeah, so they can have access.
That way you can actually reach it.
Yeah.
And it's in an area where I can't really have it. It's near power lines. So, keeping it 10 feet tall is perfect.
I tell you, fruit trees are such a perfect solution for those unsightly power lines because we want to keep the tree small. Really, what we don't want to do is to be forever, caring for these things. Like, again, right tree in the right place for the right reason. You shouldn't have to spend all this energy forever pruning it, forever.
Yeah.
We should be planning on mulching every 6 months. You should be planning on checking the irrigation while you're mulching. But pruning?
Yeah.
No. Removing crossing branches, removing dead wood, and then just for structural integrity. And that's really the reason to prune.
Yeah. You know it.
Not for control issues. That's a whole nother deal.
For sure. Well, it's been a hoot, Anne. I want to thank you for making time for us.
hoot and a
Austin, do you have
holler.
any other questions for Anne?
Oh, we can go on for. I would love just to chit chat and you can.
I know.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate. We got to wrap it up at some point.
Aw.
But this has been a blast. Thank you for coming into the studio, and thank you for everything that you do. I've been on sort of a tree kick lately.
You have. You've
Austin
been on,
found the 1 millionth tree.
Yeah.
Yes, that was
I did,
fun.
and I'm excited. I'm working on a project to share that tree with our community. I think people should be aware of its existence and its significance. And that all came from Ray, and that came from you. So just thank you. You know, you start talking to tree people, and then before you know it, you've made more and more friends and
Yeah.
more, and it just grows. So
Well, I would say that most people have a tree story, either from their youth or from now. And let's make these positive tree stories. They don't, it's wonderful to hear the joy and the connection and the love that we share with nature and each other.
totally
You know it.
agree.
Yeah.
Thank you, Anne. Thank you so much. And let's do our little sign off all together.
Well, like a mycorrhizal connection, the trees connect us all. It's been awesome. Another great week. Thank you to our listeners for tuning in. We love having you. It's so much fun to come here and talk plants and have other people enjoy it. We've been running into some listeners lately, and it's just been a blast. So thank you to everyone. Again, tip my straw hat to you, Anne. And hey, let's take it away. I'm going to say our final ending. Anne, can you jump in with us on this?
You just have to say never stop growing with us.
Well, another great week talking plants. Thank you to everyone for coming here. And until next week, garden friends, happy gardening to you all. And please, never stop growing.
Nice.
All right.
Is that good?
Yeah.